She doesn't even go here.
I'm bi, actually.
Excuse me. Could the ugly, untalented gays please report to the principal's office?
Hi, I'm Kurt Homo, and I'll be auditioning for the role of kicker.
Hello! Welcome to Not So Straight Nerds. I'm your host, Alicia.
I am your other host, Luke.
Azur. And today we're going to talk about mainly 28 years later, the newest release. But we'll also mention the first two, I would imagine.
Yeah,
it's relevant.
There's a relevant conversation to be had with the first two as well.
Yeah. And I will say, spoiler alert, we did both like this movie. So, say what you want about the first two.
And we will say some things about the first two.
Oh, we will. But at least this one, if you liked it, you'll have a good time here. So you may not agree with our opinions on the first two, but that's okay. That's not what the majority of the episode's about. Anyways,
before we get too deep into this conversation, vibe check.
Vibe check.
How are the vibes?
I feel excited. I feel like when we filmed the other day, it was nice because it had been a while since we filmed, but I was still in that zone with the new cat and that transition where I was still kind of stressed. And now I'm like I was not eating very well, and now my appetite is totally back. So I'm feeling much better about the video and just in general. So there you go.
Nice.
Yeah, what about you?
I am very excited to talk about this film.
Yeah.
It's a film that really stuck with me, and I've rarely stopped thinking about it since watching. So I'm very excited to talk it out.
Yeah. It also grew on me. I rated it half a star higher after I slept on it. So, yeah. So, there you go.
So, I think maybe the best way to start this conversation would be, how familiar are you with, the zombie genre of movies? How many zombie movies or shows have you familiarized yourself with?
I think he's stuck. Maybe you should answer that first, and I'll go save him.
Sure.
Okay.
I will say for me, it's not a ton. I am one of the few people who never got onto the Walking Dead wagon, at least not yet. I know that is a very big franchise and show for a lot of people. So I know there's a lot of standards being set there. I know, for me, Zombieland is probably the biggest movie that I have watching.
I don't think I've ever even heard of that one.
Zombieland? Oh, it's...
Zombieland?
Yeah, it has... Oh my God, Emma Stone in it.
I don't know, man.
And there's two of them.
Oh.
Grace Randolph is in the second one.
Oh, okay, Queen. Okay. I guess I need to watch them then.
Yeah, they're very modern versions of zombie storytelling. And it's edited, I think, very 2000s-y, which is very fun. I will say, what else? I don't know. Just maybe cartoony zombies from early Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen a lot of the big ones. I haven't seen World War Z. Train to Busan is a big one. I'm trying to think of some other big ones. Shaun of the Dead I haven't seen.
I say Dawn of the Dead.
Dawn of the Dead I've also not seen. Maybe arguably... Whoa.
That was a big meow.
The Evil Dead movies maybe count, but they're a little different even in that vein. So
yeah, I've seen a lot of dystopian type movies, so not quite the same as zombie apocalypse type movies. I will say I have not seen World War Z, but I have read the book.
Oh, I don't even think I knew it was a book. That's cool.
My uncle likes reading, and so he got me into that when I was kind of talking about The Last of Us and zombies and stuff like that.
Oh, The Last of Us, another big one.
Yeah. Obviously I've seen The Last of Us. We covered the second season. But also I started The Walking Dead. It's been a while since I've seen an episode, but I've seen the entire first season and then I think one or two of the second. You're going to be hearing him today. He's in a mood. That's okay. Yeah, I haven't seen the movie World War Z though, and then just recently watched the 28 Days franchise, whatever. I don't really think I've seen a whole lot. I haven't even seen like the Disney zombies. Or
I have
whatever.
seen that
Oh,
one.
he will steal your snacks.
What a
And he's
beast.
not gonna give up. You might as well just hold it.
Way. That did remind me, I also have seen Lisa Frankenstein.
Oh,
Also
yeah,
definitely a
yeah.
zombie in that.
Mhm.
I think a little bit outside any kind of norms that exist in zombie storytelling. Oh, Warm Bodies is another one.
I haven't seen that one, but I've heard of that one. So, not a lot. Somebody put on here Evil Dead Rise. Is that like zombie? I thought
mean,
that was
'cause
more like horror, just like
I
generic
think
horror.
with the way that they kind of do their like possessed people, it's possessed corpses. So like on it's a
Oh.
weird technical basis of whether it's a zombie or not. And there's a word that they even call the creatures that like come back to life in the corpses, and I can't remember it off the top of my head. But there's like a specific name for it that's like not zombie. So
I don't know. From the list I'm finding, I have not seen a lot. I've seen The Last of Us. I've seen part of The Walking Dead, a very small part of The Walking Dead, and I've read the World War Z book. So
maybe I think that
And
might
then now
be
this.
an important context as we go into this movie and this franchise overall. That we're not super versed in a lot of zombie stuff. I think some of them have really worked for me, but overall the idea of like, oh, there's a zombie in it, I need to watch it. Not a thing for me.
No, not really. Me neither. Vampires, absolutely.
I love me
Again,
vampire.
I love
me
vampires.
a werewolf.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of werewolves. Are okay. Okay, I just read a really long book that had basically werewolves in it. They were called something different, but I mean it's werewolves. I forgot. Like they used things like the pack and the alpha, and I'm like, okay, and they turn into wolves. So I don't know why they don't just call themselves werewolves, but whatever. But
Maybe
even that,
because you're
it's
a
like
hater.
I don't.
I'm joking.
What?
Keep going. Keep going.
What?
You're doing great.
Anyways, so yeah, I'm not that into many supernatural creatures other than vampires, but zombies are okay. I like the different explorations of them between the main three things that I've watched: The Walking Dead and The Last of Us, 28 years. So I like it. A different lore.
So, that being said, as we've been preparing to watch this movie,
Yeah.
we decided early on that we wanted to watch the original two.
Yeah. 28 days, 28 weeks.
Yes. So, what do you think this franchise was going to be before we started?
Honestly, I saw the trailer for this movie before I had even had on my horizon the other two existed.
Sure.
So, and I really liked the trailer. It seemed, and it was coming off The Last of Us hype, and it was coming off The Last of Us hype, and I don't know, it just came at a good time where I felt good about zombies, creatures, things like that. And then so I don't know what I expect, and then I got excited finding out that the first one had Cillian Murphy.
Sure.
And the second one had Rumpelstiltskin from Once Upon a Time. I don't know the actor's name.
I don't remember his name either.
But that was making me excited, and then all the great reviews and everything, and then it was wildly different than what I thought it was. So
Ballpark,
yeah.
is there a vibe or something that you were expecting, or maybe something you would compare what you were expecting it to be like?
I honestly thought what we got out of this movie, the years later, is what I thought we were going to get out of the first two.
Okay.
I would say.
Interesting. I would say I think it's actually really interesting that the first time I've even heard of these movies was when I moved into my first place 2 years ago. 3 years ago. 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And my parents just basically gave me a bunch of these DVDs that they didn't want anymore.
Yeah.
And so I was going through them and getting rid of and keeping the ones that I wanted and didn't want.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the first place I've ever seen 28 Days and Weeks Later.
Okay. I mean, they're definitely a staple, so I don't know how they have fallen under our radar for so long, but...
But then I also came to find out that apparently the 28 Days Later, Blu-ray,
did really
like,
well.
No, people are like, it's apparently very hard to find right now.
Oh.
And like people are like selling them.
So
for,
you're
I don't
like-
know, I might be on the jackpot.
Yeah. You have it like
I
in.
think so. Honestly, heaven forbid, I don't remember if I put it in the keeper giveaway
Oh
pile.
gosh. You should be like, hey, can I look at that movie collection one more
But
time?
that was so long ago. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. But apparently it's really hard to find the 28 days. It's not like streaming anywhere. You can't,
Interesting.
like, you have to, like, I think buy it on
Mm-hmm.
iTunes.
Yeah.
But
That's how we watched it because you owned it.
yeah, so which I think is
Yeah.
interesting. But I was expecting. I think the biggest thing is that I wasn't expecting it to be British. I think might be the thing.
Yeah, and
I-
that's unfortunately, I feel like you really need to know that going into this. At least the first two, you like really need to know.
Well, but I've
what
heard
you're
there's
gonna
also
get to.
a difference between the first two because the second one is definitely American.
yeah, and
It's not
I've
filmed the way
heard
the first one is.
no, and I've heard that people like kind of universally hate the second one, which I found interesting. That's what I've seen of like. I'm so glad we've like followed up 28 weeks later with something so much better. Basically, I've seen a lot of
Interesting. I've
comments
heard-
along those lines.
I've seen a lot of stuff where people really love the first one, and
Mm-hmm.
then the second one they like, but it's not the first one.
Maybe that's
it's
what
kind
it
of the
is. Maybe they
consensus
don't
I've been seeing.
dislike, but maybe just are okay with. Yeah.
Which I think is interesting on both,
Mm-hmm.
because here's the hot take from the Not So Straight Nerds podcast.
Yeah.
We didn't like it. Honestly,
I-
either of them.
I hated the first one.
I
I
think
like
it's-
really hated the first one.
It.
Unfortunately.
I also think it's bad.
I don't know. And I've been trying to read about like why people like it, and it's just nonstop comments of people saying, "Well, you just don't get it," in response to like any critique about the movie. It's bad quality. Well, you just don't get it. That's purposeful. Okay.
Why is it purposeful?
I
What are they
understand.
trying to do with
I'm
it?
not stupid. Like I understand that despite the low budget, it was still high enough to have the choice of a better quality, and they didn't do that. So I'm not dumb. I understand that was a choice. I'm saying I don't like that choice. Now maybe it has some kind of cultural like relevance. I don't know. I haven't read that much into it. I've just seen like people talking on Twitter, so that's not that serious. But I don't know. I think it's frustrating when I really hate something that people liked and I go online to see why they liked it, and it's just a bunch of like, well, you just don't get it. Like, you're cool if you like this movie and you're not cool if you don't. And it's like, oh, that's not a good conversation. That's not the conversation that deserves to be had. So I think that's unfortunate. So
Yeah, I think I think 28 Days later really kind of set, like, it was like the first domino in the wave of
Yeah.
like zombie medium.
yeah, and I
So-
can respect that, and I could definitely see how it went on to inspire a bunch of other media. So, you know, it's definitely relevant, and I appreciate it for that. Could very much see, like, you know, even though I'm watching this after other things, I'm like, oh, this is so Walking Dead or whatever. Like, I can see
Oh,
the
that
inspiration
opening.
there.
Completely inspired.
Oh,
The beginning
it's
of
honestly
Walking
like
Dead.
a ripoff. So, I would say, but anyways,
It's very funny.
yeah.
But
Because we also, I think we read that the comic for The Walking Dead started coming out the same year,
the
or
same year, I think,
I
or
think
just
so.
like just the next
just
year.
yeah. So I don't think it could have been a ripoff. I don't know actually, because I don't know what the comic did versus what the show did. The
Sure.
show could have, but anyways, that's just interesting.
It is very interesting. And another thing I think is a little important to say is that technically it's not zombies, it's infected.
Yeah.
And so, you know, they're infected with rage.
The rage
how
virus.
How do we feel about that?
Honestly, that's kind of grown on me. I mean, I feel like nowadays if somebody tried to, that's what's hard, because I'm not watching it when it came out before all the other media came out, because maybe I don't get it because of that. So I think it would have been silly if something came out now and was clearly zombie but didn't want to call themselves zombie, kind of like the book I just read. It's like, you're literally saying you're in a pack, you're an alpha, you turn
Sure.
into wolves. I'm like, just call yourselves
Like
werewolves.
like
Get
Wolfman.
over yourself. Yeah, it's like, okay. But this came first, and so I'm trying to look at it from that lens. So before zombie was kind of like the universal name, which I think even The Last of Us doesn't really say zombie.
Yeah, because they
They do like
say
clickers or walkers or whatever. I don't know. I hated it at first, but it also was in a movie that I was hating, so it's kind of grown on me a little bit.
I don't know. It feels like maybe a bit of a dated choice. I feel like the
Yeah, it
second
does
and
age
third
poorly.
one did enough with it to like kind of
Yeah.
be like, yeah, this is our thing.
Yeah.
The first one I feel like does not, and I have a lot of other problems with the first one.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's hard to separate how much I think it just hasn't aged well. Because I've
Yeah.
also seen, there's, I think, an understanding that it doesn't age nearly as well as other movies in the time.
Yeah.
But I think people still remember it fondly from when they first watched it. So I can understand people maintaining some connection of there. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That we had no chance of ever getting because
Yeah.
we're watching it over 20 years later.
Yeah. Almost 28.
But
Wow.
I will
Anyways.
say there's just a good amount of things from that first movie that just aggressively don't work for me.
Yeah.
Getting into maybe some spoilers on the first movie, 28 Days Later. Honestly, it's a real problem for me that they get real handsy and, oh, men have to reproduce or else they don't want to survive. Yeah, I don't think that works for 4 weeks into the apocalypse.
Yeah.
Like-
I mean, I know there'd be crappy people that take advantage of stuff like that, but that excuse just within a movie, I think, is really toxic. It ages poorly, and I just don't want to see it. I don't want to hear it.
Like, that's a thing where it's like, I would have hated to have had to watch that then, and I continue to hate watching it now, and then also the movie quality is where it's at.
Yeah, it's frustrating because I'm just so tired of like watching movies where they're like, we have women and they need some sort of conflict. Let's put in some sexual assault or rapey conflict. Like we just watched Supergirl. Oh my god, I rolled my eyes so much. The second she gets to Earth and she meets two guys and it immediately turns really gross. I'm like, I know this is an old movie, but this is still such a lazy choice, and I don't care if it, that was the thing. One, it's still happening all the time. So people are still doing it because it's quote unquote realistic. I'm like, okay, but I'm tired of seeing it every stupid movie I watch. Like, I don't know. It's like you didn't need that. The
I
conflict
think, especially
is
in
the zombies.
like the concept here.
Yeah.
I struggle to see what it added.
Yeah, what's it doing? What's it saying? Like, I didn't like these guys in the first place, so you don't need to add more to that. And it's like they're already in danger with zombies, so I don't know.
And even the whole point of them like finding the military, and it's like, cool. So all of you are military men, and you just didn't think it was important to keep the person who could run the helicopter alive.
Yeah.
I
don't know.
That-
It's just such horrible quality.
And then I also feel like the zombies or the infected themselves in that first movie are also just really inconsistent. Like, they just randomly are able to pinpoint where someone is in like a 60-story building, and they like are from like across the street, and it's just like, oh, I know where they're at. It's like they're echolocating, and it's like there's no reason for them to think to go there. But
Yeah.
And
It's like,
then
I understand once they know where someone is, they're very determined because they're filled with rage.
sure.
But how do you get there in the first place? And one of our first opening scenes is Cillian Murphy's character walking through a city, and like there's no zombies around
No, that's
for
what's
the
insane.
longest time.
It's so funny especially watching the first movie and the second movie back to back, because the opening scene of the first one is Cillian Murphy waking up in abandoned London, and there is no one, no corpses, no people, no zombies in this hyper-infected, one of the most populous like collection of people on this island that's quarantined.
Yeah.
And you're just seeing no people in general. I understand what they were wanting to do, but then you go into the second one where you have like 5 times the amount of people that he sees in the city of London in just some like hillside house in the middle of nowhere, and it's
Yeah.
so like, where did these people come from?
Well, and I understand like the second movie is weeks later, but still, it's like there were still a lot of people there.
Borderline,
when
there
it
should be a
happened.
lot more people
Yeah.
infected in the city in London 4 weeks after this happened.
Yeah.
Especially when he's coming out of a hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I think that's something The Walking Dead does so much better is because he wakes up in a hospital and it's like boarded up. Like it takes effort to get out of the room. So that kind of explains how he's not touched. I still have problems with the fact that how did he get like food and water if he was in, I don't know how long
it could
he
have
was
been
in a
IV,
coma.
which
Maybe.
is supposed to be a way that you feed someone who was in a coma.
Yeah. I just don't know how long he was in it, so I don't know how long that would realistically work. But that's like a nitpicky thing.
Mm-hmm.
But then he gets out and he sees like bodies everywhere and he sees zombies, although he has the advantage of they're really slow in The Walking Dead, so I guess, But they could do something where he sees someone running and he gets scared and gets behind something, and that's how he's discovering maybe what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't do that. And then he has a gun somehow. I forgot. I need to rewatch I have a really bad memory, so I already forgot what the pilot was. But I don't know. I think they do that intro much better to the world than this.
Agree.
It's like, honestly, it's a miracle he survived that long. Because he was just walking around. He got really, really lucky.
He
There was
got
no one
incredibly
around.
lucky.
Mhm.
A borderline miracle levels lucky. He didn't
Yeah.
run he didn't immediately find a horde of people infected in the most populous city in the UK.
Yeah. So that's kind of crazy.
Although I will say I love the design of the infected. I think the red eyes, and I think at times in the first one when they shoot it and it's like really close up and very jarring.
Yeah.
It kind of gives like what Weapons is giving with some of its shots, where it's
Yeah.
like very like eye heavy and like the
face.
crazy eyes. I think some of that's really powerful, and a lot of people really latch onto that.
Yeah.
And also, I've seen commentary that like it works really well because you don't see the infected a lot in that first movie.
Yeah.
I think that's a little bit of a cop out because either you're doing a zombie movie or you're not.
Yeah.
Either there's enough. Of
It's
these,
okay to build suspense, but like just to barely have them.
I don't
It's
know.
different.
And also because I
It's a
feel like
fine
whenever
line.
we do see them, I think their initial shots are really cool, like especially
Yeah.
when they're like on the eyes. But beyond that, I feel like they don't use them well. Like
Yeah.
it's like, oh, cool zombies. Oh, wait, why are they doing what they're doing? This is really weird. I'm pulled out.
Yeah.
And it's like that almost every time we see them.
I agree. I really wanted the shaky camera to grow on me, but it was just giving like rock music video. I was
And
like,
the
this
edit-
hurts my
And
head.
the editing is so rough in that first one for me.
Yeah. It's like I can't see anything. It's like, because I've seen people say, well, it's supposed to reflect how the characters feel. They feel overwhelmed. And but you're making a movie, and as a viewer, if I'm getting a headache from your editing and can't tell what's going on, then you're not making a good movie. So,
Yeah, I think there's a fine line, and I guess it might just come down to personal taste, but for
and again, I
for
feel like
us,
the
it
third
didn't
one did
know.
it well.
I agree. That's,
So,
I think the
they
third
didn't
one gets a
overdo
lot
it.
of what people praise the first one for.
I agree.
And like I saw an element that people were saying that like there's a lot of great chemistry between the characters.
Yeah.
I disagree with that. I think the dad and the daughter had a very realistic relationship, and I thought that was very sweet. Everyone else's relationship, I either didn't care about or wasn't feeling it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, especially the relationship between Cillian Murphy and his love interest, who just randomly is like in the first scene, it's like, you don't need people in your life. If you have people in your life and they're getting attacked, you run, because you're a loner in this world. And then immediately it's like, well, maybe I want to get married and have kids. And it's like,
What?
how did we get here?
I don't know.
And,
It's such a fine line because it's like, just choose a side. Like, it's okay to like have that mindset in an apocalypse, even if it's, if it doesn't make you that likable. It could be realistic. Like, sure, you're probably desensitized to it and you're just doing whatever you can to survive. But then to turn around and say something completely different is just kind of weird. for viewers.
It's
So.
on.
Well, I don't know, man.
Going on to 28 Weeks Later. This one is a very much more American movie.
Yeah.
And once again, I have the main issue here where... Oh, spoilers on 28 Weeks Later, by the way.
Yeah.
I have the same problem here where the zombies just, the rules change depending on what they want the zombies to do, which I think is incredibly lazy. Like,
Yeah.
and then there's the cure running through this family's genes.
Oh yeah,
Which,
and that's never
whatever
followed up
about
with.
that being, I guess, the cause of action. It's like the call to action, like halfway through the movie, and then it clearly doesn't do anything by the end of it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the whole family dynamic there, hate. I
didn't really like the kids all that much.
no, I
and
thought they were really bad.
the movie really
Well,
like
not
needed
that-
you to
I
like
think
them.
the son did a decent job acting wise, I guess. But just like the dynamic and everything they were trying to do with the kids didn't work for me.
Yeah.
I think it's very funny that Jeremy Renner as a sniper in this character was clearly like this was the movie that was pushed forward when they were looking at casting him for Hawkeye, which is very funny.
I liked him in this movie.
I thought he was all right.
You know, in terms of like everybody else.
No, he was definitely
So-
on the higher side. I was actually really bummed.
And
to
the woman from Insidious.
yes,
I don't
she
know
was
her
also
name,
very
but
fun to
yeah.
see as the doctor here. I thought they were easily giving the best performances. I thought Idris
too.
Elba also
Yeah.
because he was so separated from everyone else. I thought he did fine.
Yeah.
Everyone else though, it's brutal out
Even
here.
Rumpelstiltskin's actor. Well, he didn't get a lot of time to shine before he became.
He was
infected,
given a lot of
but-
Rumpelstiltskin from Once Upon a Time, which is interesting.
Yeah.
But it's ultimately his character. I hate how bad they did him because after he gets infected, every time I see him, it's an eye roll because why did a zombie get here? Never even minding it's this zombie that is just so convenient to the plot to be the one that's here.
Yeah.
How did a zombie get here in this world? That doesn't make sense. And it's like that every time he shows up after he's infected. And that's like
Yeah.
5 times.
There's one point where they send like some bomb for the city or do some gas or whatever. They light the city on fire essentially to try to wipe as much of them out as they can.
Yes.
And we see the main group, the kids and Jeremy Renner's character and the other girl. They're running down these like subway stairs or something along those lines, some sort of
Yes.
stairs. And it's going down with them around corners, like it's following them, which already kind of seems, is that how that would work?
I
And
mean, it has to be
maybe-
released somewhere, and it has momentum to go forward. So
Yeah, but then at one point, Rumpelstiltskin's character, when he's infected, he just kind of like hides in a little alleyway, and he's like 2 inches from the fire, and it never turns in his direction. And I'm like, what? Okay, that seems
right.
convenient.
So our zombies are not smart enough to like outmaneuver a human, but
Yeah.
they're smart enough to avoid an incendiary blast.
Well, and it shouldn't have avoided him.
No,
That
as
was
well.
my problem with it. I was like, huh?
Just another element to add. And then it ends. Ultimately, it ends with the infection getting off the UK, and they're in Paris. And then this movie was like, no, let's not do that.
Honestly, good.
And what a great move! I've
Thank
seen some
goodness.
people be like, the smartest thing this movie did was ignore the second one,
Yeah, that's kind of the other comments I've read.
which
Yeah.
there's clearly a pocket that still really likes the second one and is like on the opposite side of that, which is I think wild. Hi there.
I liked some ideas,
I
but
will
it just
say
didn't flesh out well.
they
for me.
brought in an interesting idea. Hi there.
Hey. No, you're getting stuck.
Basket. Here, take him.
Okay.
Where the second one is interesting because it's a zombie movie, but after the attack. But also, it's crazy that you were trying to repopulate an infected zone like this without clearing the entire continent first.
Yeah, it's like this felt more like a thing we should do maybe 28 months
later,
later.
exactly. Why didn't they just do that?
Like it's okay to take more time. Like this is not something you want to mess up, and clearly, we see what happened when they did. So, you know,
Yeah.
it's like, don't rush it. You definitely did. It's just crazy.
So,
And the whole thing with the mom being discovered that she's halfway infected, but then she dies anyways. So
Yeah.
that doesn't mean, it's like she just existed in order to, you know, have you be like, oh, the kids are now halfway infected or whatever.
yeah.
I'm like, that's the only reason she ever existed.
Yeah, it feels...
Do you have something to say? ASMR.
Let me talk.
ASMR. Anyways,
Distracting,
Is
distracting.
that is that it for 28 Weeks Later?
I think so, but with that in mind, I imagine, is it fair to say your expectations might have been a little lower before we came into this one?
I was kind of scared. It got to the point where we looked up who was mainly involved in the first two movies, and then finding out that it was all different for this one, where it was like, okay, so, you know, that's already a good start.
Mm-hmm.
And the trailer's really good, and we
Yes.
watched the trailer for 28 Weeks Later, and it was not great.
Yeah.
So we had some faith, but I would be lying if I said I wasn't scared. I definitely was.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I'm honestly going into this movie expecting to hate it. So let's see. And I didn't. Quite the opposite. So I really liked it, actually. It's one of those that I came out of and the ending left a bad taste in my mouth. So I was kind of harsh on it. And then I slept on it. And I was like, actually, not even 5-minute ending scene doesn't take away from the whole other movie, or doesn't need to. So actually, I'm going to rate it higher. So I think I rated it 4 stars by the end.
Okay. And that's where my score is.
Yeah.
As well.
And the first two I did I'm so sorry, guys. I did 1 star and 2 stars, I think.
Oh, mine's even lower than
Something like
that.
Yeah. I was just like, oh, God. I don't know. I'm so sorry that I didn't get it, but I didn't. I'm sorry.
Yeah, same here. So, but going into, or I guess having seen 28 Years Later,
Mhm.
I think it's fair to say that we both view this as a high point in the franchise.
Absolutely. And I'm excited that this is going to become its own little trilogy. The second one's coming out in January,
Apparently.
which is kind of crazy that they didn't say that at the end of the movie. You know, you would think I still wouldn't know that if you hadn't told me that.
Mm-hmm.
I still wouldn't know that because I don't know if anyone's even talking about it that I've seen on Twitter.
I think that is a problem that the movie has.
Yeah. Why would you not do a title card at the end of the movie saying part 1 and then it's part 2's coming out in January? I don't know why you wouldn't do that. That's kind of crazy.
I don't know. I think there's a conversation to be had here about when people know they're going into a part 1.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's also maybe a conversation we'll have in a bit where is this movie a part 1?
Yeah.
I think there's some interesting stuff to talk here.
Mm-hmm.
This is our non-spoiler section at first.
Yeah.
So, you're good unless you, yeah, you're good. You're safe.
You're safe.
You're not
going to
get infected with our spoiler.
No, oh my gosh.
So, so you're responsible for getting people to show up and watch this movie. What is your
Okay.
pitch to them?
Mm-hmm. If you didn't like the first two, it's not the first two. It's everything the first movie wanted to do, but way better. It has Aaron Taylor Johnson. It has Jodie Comer. It has, Ralph Fiennes?
Yes.
And they're all great, especially the latter two. And then I forgot his name. We wrote it down
Edvin-
here.
Or the kid.
Alfie Williams is
Yes.
Spike. He's the kid. He's great. Honestly, I was like, I know this is not the adolescence kid, but he's giving that amount of talent.
I've seen a lot of people saying...
Different character, but
Mhm.
I'm like, I love watching this guy on the screen, actually.
Yes.
He's doing great. Ooh, what if he was like Hiccup in another life?
In another life? Interesting.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people saying they want variety to have those two actors do actors on actors.
Yeah.
And what a great idea.
I agree. I absolutely agree. So, I don't know. And I will say I was scared at the end of the movie. I was like, oh, please don't be the guy that's playing Harry Potter in the series. Please don't like annihilate his career like that. It's not. They're different people. I feel bad for that guy. It's not this guy, so we're good. So, anyways. Yeah,
That's
great
fair.
cast, great visuals. In the first half, I will say it's more of your typical, like, I almost said vampire. Zombie movie. Especially, like, at 28 Days, but just, like, done really well. But the second half just becomes its own thing, and I'm in love with the second half. Like, oh my gosh, I love what they did here. It's so interesting because the zombies were still very much a present part of the story, but there was something else going on that they explore, and it was really well done, and it was very powerful.
Yeah,
and I'm
absolutely.
so glad they did it. And it was carried by Jodie Comer and Ralph Fiennes, 100%. But also Alfie Williams. But I really liked the first two's performances a lot. So
Absolutely. I completely agree with that.
honestly, I loved Jodie Comer's performance so much that I'm like, can we get her like some small acting awards maybe for this movie? Obviously, I
We
know
can
that we're not
hope.
going to get an Oscar,
Sure.
but I'm like, I wouldn't mind if she got
It's
some
very
of the
strong.
smaller
It's,
ones.
it's definitely a reminder that I think Jodie Comer
She's awesome.
does not get nearly enough work.
No, or
Like,
recognition of
Crazy
her
that
work.
she was in the run for Sue Storm. 'Cause
Yeah.
What a great thing to be
Mhm.
like. And reminder, I could have been the Invisible Woman.
And I think she would have been great. Not that
Mm-hmm.
I'm mad about.
No, not at all.
Vanessa,
but I think it's definitely worth remembering that she was very close
She
to
was in
becoming the mother.
Yeah. So there you go.
So
It's okay. We have some X-Men we can cast if she still wants to be in it. So we'll figure it out.
I believe there will truly always be a seat for Jodie Comer.
I think
It's
so.
anywhere she wants to be.
Yeah.
I have to believe that.
I agree.
So,
Would you add anything to my pitch?
to your pitch, I will say I think I know you said it's you pitched it as better than the 28 Days Later. It's like
What's
if you
your
didn't
pitch
like it,
for the people who did like it?
I think it grows off of it really well.
Mhm.
Like I think there's a lot of the things that I heard people say they saw and liked in the first one
Mhm.
here, but I like that it's almost like it's very present, it's very tied into the story you're watching here, but it's not the only thing you're seeing here.
Yeah.
Like there's this a whole other story that's just like laced in the background of what is this franchise,
Yeah.
which I think is really cool storytelling. The idea that like you're making a genre film, but you're not relying on it being a genre film,
Yeah.
which
I feel like they just found people who really believed in the threads of what the first and second movie wanted to do, and they really made that their own thing, and it came to life really well. So whether or not you liked the first two, I think you're gonna really like this one.
I would think so.
Because if you liked the first two, they took the best parts of those and made a really good story.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
there you go.
I will warn, it doesn't have anything to do with the first two at
No,
all.
like it doesn't explore. I guess that's kind of spoilers. I guess, but it doesn't have anything to do with like the halfway infected or a cure. Like it doesn't mention any of that.
It does
So,
not. I have to wonder what people going straight into this third installment must feel like.
Mhm.
I wonder if it's maybe almost different for them.
Yeah.
And how so?
Yeah.
Because you don't understand that it's like a rage virus. I don't think they ever talked about how it's a rage virus. It's just infected because it has evolved in the 28 years that it's been there.
Yeah.
And it's essentially, I mean, there's clearly the normal infected,
Yeah.
but then you have these other types
Expands
that are
the lore.
very different,
Mhm.
which I actually really liked.
Yeah, me too. And there's something. Oh, and then a lot of people were. This is totally out on the internet, so I don't feel bad saying this. But people thought Cillian Murphy was one of the infected,
Yes.
the one that like rises up, which he still kind of looks like
It
him.
looks a lot like him.
But they have confirmed it's not him. He's gonna be in the next one
will
and
be.
the third one. Whether as a zombie or not, I don't know. They haven't said. They just said that's not him. He's not in this movie. He's going to be in the next two. Which is kind of a shame. I wish they just said it wasn't him, because I think that could have been a fun surprise. Whether or not, like, in any capacity he's going to show up, that would have been fun. But
I think that there's... I fear
know.
it is important for them to come out and say it, lest
wish-
it feels
yeah.
like they're trying to be like retcon it later.
yeah.
Like, I think that can come
That's
off as almost
true.
cheap if you don't come out and be like, we did not intend for this to be him either.
Yeah.
So let's put that on the record.
Maybe they could have said, this is not him. We did not intend for it to look like him, but we would,
But that being
totally
said,
be
it does
open.
look very similar to him, which is
Yeah.
a wild choice in that.
Very similar.
It feels like maybe the marketing team almost ran too hard with it.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know.
But going into the movie, do you mind if maybe I
Absolutely. Go ahead.
I would love to get started on some pros to this movie
Yeah.
because I absolutely adored this movie.
You broke it down
actually.
really in a really fun way. I'm excited.
Yeah. So the thing I really loved about this movie is a lot of the different themes.
Yeah.
Like it feels like they have a lot here, and I love the way they explore them. And like I said, it feels like this is a story that can be told in a lot of different ways. And I think it's just very fun to have clearly someone loved these original movies and they wanted to put these stories into that world, and I think they do it really well. Specifically with like the themes of this essentially being like a coming of age story for Spike, our main character.
Yeah.
I really love the idea that he's from this enclosed environment and he's, being led into, essentially what his bigger world is.
Yes.
Even though he's trapped on this island, this bigger island,
Yeah.
he's being kind of led by the people of his community into what this world is, and he's being showed and taught how it works.
Yeah.
And I think that's very relatable. We all, growing up, can remember like when we started learning how things work, being showed and taught things.
Yeah.
But then what I think this movie does really, really well is the idea of like, sometimes, and I would say a lot of the times, if not everyone, has to go out and learn how the world actually works outside of what you think it is and what you've been told it is.
Yeah.
And I think that's a
agree.
really powerful story here, in the idea that like he is being led and told how it works, and then he has his own mission to go out there, and he's kind of forced to find his own understanding of how the world works and how he works within that world. And I think that's a very relatable story to a lot of people who are open to it, and I think who are specifically, I think you have to perceive it for it to land in this movie. I think I can see people getting lost in the genre of zombie
Yeah.
to overlook some of these really well developed themes, but it is all so there.
Yeah. It's almost like they're using zombies as a way of representing evil people in the world and the destruction that can cause,
Sure.
which is actually a really interesting idea.
Yeah, I think there's also a really interesting element with his parents
Yeah.
there, and the way that like they talk about what the world is, and then how
Yeah.
they both have very different approaches to how they handle being in the world with him.
Yeah.
I think it's all just really fascinating. When we get into the
Yeah.
spoiler talk, we'll get into the more specifics on that, but I think it's really strong in the idea that, ultimately all of us have to decide like how we feel about the world outside of what everyone else thinks, and we kind of have to, find our place in that.
Yeah.
So I think it's a really powerful movie in that regard.
I agree. And I like the representation of how his dad deals with that, and almost like it isn't an important lesson to learn how the world works, but I definitely feel like most people would say he went too far with it and pushed a little too far with it, even if he had good intentions. But I found it really interesting that Spike still kind of finds his own paths and opinions on how to navigate it, different than what his father would do or
Absolutely.
say. So it's very cool.
I really liked. There's a lot of theme. Okay, a really strong theme here that I had heard people appreciated from the first one
Yeah.
was the theme that like life will always go on, and there will always be great things in life.
Yeah.
You'll always have connection. You'll find friends. There will be nature. There will be food. There will be beauty. Respectfully, they went through a department store, like the grocery store in the first one. That looked super fun. And then they went for a picnic, I guess.
Her?
That wasn't a super beautiful movie outside of that. So I don't know
Yeah.
how strongly I believe that was an intentional theme that they were aiming for in that movie.
I don't know.
But in this one, it just like this is a beautiful movie. And like even when it's dark, like a lot of it feels very purposeful here.
Yeah. It also looks really cool when it's dark. Like, you can still tell what's going on. I mean, you earn so many brownie points with me as a show or movie if it's nighttime and I can tell what's going on. Like, Elio, the same thing, the way that's animated. I'm like, this is great.
You're right. This
So-
is a lot like Elio.
In, many ways. They're practically the same movie. So.
But this movie did something also, I think, better than the first one,
Mm-hmm.
where they introduced the character towards the middle, and I think the way that that blends into the ensemble works really well.
Yeah.
Way better than I think any
the others
oh my
do.
gosh, Join Us works in the first one.
Yeah.
I think
So.
the ensemble and
So
like
what
how it
happens when
kind
you
of
get
grows
Ralph
and,
Fiennes?
and shrinks works really well here.
Yeah.
And I think you feel the chemistry between the characters really well.
Yeah. I was going to say, even other than Ralph Fiennes, the guy from
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
what is it? Young
Royals.
Oh, I love that guy.
I've been
I love that
writing-
show. He was so good in this movie. Oh my god, I'm gonna add that to my pitch. He's in this movie too.
He is here.
So
And I knew he was going to be in it. Whenever we had gotten a certain point into the movie and he still wasn't there, I was like, is he like just not like was he cut out? Like where
Yeah.
is he? So I was very surprised to see him come in the middle.
Yeah.
And actually have a pretty substantial part in it.
he did. Yeah.
I was very delightfully surprised by that.
Yes.
And I think he was also really funny.
He was. He left his mark for sure, and good for him because he deserves more work. A lot of people from that show do. So especially the main two.
Absolutely. What other themes? Loving. Oh, and then there's also a very interesting theme with growing up. I think I would also specifically put out like the idea of like losing your innocence. Is a huge part of this. There's a shot
Yeah.
really early on that I don't want to say what it is because it's maybe a little it's a technical spoiler, but I think it almost defines what this movie is really early on. And we'll get into it, but there's a TV.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
you probably know what I'm talking about, but I think that's like
Yes.
a perfect encapsulation of what this movie is, and the idea that
Yeah.
like, you're still super young, but you're being put into a world where you have to grow up really fast. And I think with his family situation, we kind of talked about like why the dad would put him into a situation where he has to experience the world so
Yeah.
early, especially when everyone's pointing out that it's really early.
Yeah.
I think the situation that Spike is in, like, as a kid within that family, I think there's arguably a reason that it kind of reflects why he's doing it.
Yeah.
Which I think actually works a lot for me. It in any case, it feels very purposeful, not
Yeah.
just like a random thing that's like, oh, our characters needed to do this.
They needed to get here, so this is, they're getting here. Yeah.
So I super love that, and then it goes into it kind of takes that conversation into the vein of looking at mortality, and it has a great line where they kind of quote what's called memento mori.
Yeah.
Everybody
that was also
must
in my
die.
book, and I was like, what's happening here?
Well, that's just a phrase.
No, yeah. But I just thought that was funny because I feel like I hadn't heard that a whole lot, and then I'm reading about it, and then I watched a movie where someone said it. I was like, oh my god, I will forever know that phrase now. So, there you go.
Yeah, and I really like the idea that it's. I like conversations of death. It almost reminds me of kind of why I love the idea of Dia de los Muertos.
Yeah.
Where it's the idea of not villainizing death and just kind of seeing it as like the next step in what your like existence is. There's like the idea that like what is the afterlife? Is that in memory? Is that a physical place? Is that
Coco.
something? Is that something to be
Coco.
feared?
Yeah.
I like that this movie, even though there's a lot of intensity in it, and you see a fair amount of death here.
Yeah.
There's like a tranquility to it that I think is really beautiful.
Yeah. And Ralph Fiennes' character, he's not what I expected he was going to be from the trailer. He was wildly different, and he's very much at the heart of that conversation. And I thought that his role and what they wrote him as was so powerful, and I'm
Yes.
so excited for what they want to talk about in the future movies. So
Absolutely. And so it all is just very very, very beautiful. And then there's an extension to that Memento Mori line. I can't remember what it is in Latin, but I'm going to save the last of that
Amora
line
or something.
until we get into the spoiler
okay.
section.
My
'cause
bad.
I think that's another beautiful addition to that conversation.
Yeah.
I also said the visuals were really great here.
Yeah.
I remember when we were driving to the theater, I was like, did you guys know that this was all filmed on iPhones? And I was
honestly, at times I was like, the movement of the camera I can see, because I know I've seen a picture of the contraption they have. I'm like, I can see that moving, but I don't mind. Like, that's not a con. That's not even like a nitpicky con. Like, I can see it, but I don't care. Like, it looks good and it looks fun. And you know what? I haven't seen that camera movement, or at least noticed it like I did here. And so, if anything, it's a plus. It's kind of cool. So
it feels a little unique. I will say, I don't think I would have flagged it if I didn't know that going in.
I wouldn't have
and
either.
so many of these shots,
I was looking
look
for it.
beautiful.
Yeah.
There's one shot in particular I'll mention once we get to the spoiler section.
Yeah.
But I remember watching that and being like, oh my god, what am I watching? This is like almost high art-ish.
Is it the one with the skulls?
No, it's the one where you can see the stars.
Interesting. Okay.
We'll
I don't
get
know.
into
we'll
it.
have to
but I
rewatch
really
it or something.
Rewatch it.
Yeah, later.
But it's all really beautiful. You see a bunch of like bones, and like their sets are all really well realized. It feels like most of it's really practical,
Yeah.
and they do some really fun stuff with the practical effects.
Yeah.
A lot of really cool stuff. There's an opening scene I really like. There's an awesome bridge that they have that kind of connects their isolated island to the mainland where all of the infected are. I'm going to start trying to say infected instead of zombies.
Yeah.
But,
okay.
and like, it's a really long walk, and you have to like basically tread through water sometimes, and they do some really fun stuff visually there.
Yeah.
Beyond the fact that I think it's just a gorgeous place to shoot.
Also, I think one of us, if not both of us, had the question of how are they able to get to the infected island, but they can't come back. The like lore of that, because I thought it was gonna be like a bridge, and it's not really.
It's like a natural bridge.
Yes, and I thought that was so interesting. I loved that. I loved that decision. So, and visually, it looked really cool too.
It's super cool. Like,
yeah,
it feels like one of those things where it's like, why are we not using this more often? But I'm so glad
Honestly,
we aren't,
yeah.
because it really works here, because that's a really cool detail that your movie has.
I agree.
And then also with the visuals, I'm gonna add this into editing. But there's a poem called Boots. That's played over what I think is the most popular trailer for this movie.
Okay.
It's a poem, and it's that one of the boats moving up and down again.
That was such a oh my god.
It's very
chills.
chilling.
Yeah.
And I've heard people kind of say that they liked it in the trailer more, and I think that's valid. But I like it here.
I like it
It's
here.
an interesting commentary on like the world is over, and it's kind of almost, I think, about like his dad in the context of the films, where you're just kind of going through the motions. I think it's interesting, and either way, it's very chilling.
I agree.
And you're looking at this broken world and the remnants that are left of it. It feels pretty comparable. For those who don't know, it's a poem about the Nazis in Germany, and about the warning about how, it was a very hateful and scary movement, and it was all about fitting in, and no one was doing anything about it. And,
Yeah.
the person who sees it gets very intense with the, why is no one doing anything about it?
Mm-hmm.
And it's,
Okay. I did not know that.
yeah, it's...
I didn't know it was a poem, and I didn't know what it was
Yes.
about. So good
and
to know.
I'm pretty sure that's an original recording from someone in that time period. So it's
Wow.
it's
Very
it's
cool.
it's actually very powerful stuff,
Yeah.
regardless of how it's being
Because
used here.
also, no one's doing anything to help the island. They say
Sure.
that in the movie.
They're very isolated here. So that is another great
That
connection,
is-
actually.
Yeah. That's a good choice then.
And then
And I mean, I guess it's not coming from a place of racism, but like the zombies against the people.
Sure.
But it is rage, it is hate. So like,
sure, yeah.
similar. Where the hate is coming from, racism versus infection, different. But the hate is still there, which yeah. So I can very much see those connections.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also really like the zombie effects here. They had
Yeah.
some great makeup on them. The eyes continue to be a great selling point for what makes your infected zombie characters unique.
Yeah.
It's very fun. Here, they get a little bit more eroded, maybe is the right word, and definitely way more gross.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And then I fear we need to bring up
the elephant in the room.
the sturdy elephant in the room.
Oh my gosh. What did... Oh, people were making jokes that it should be called 28 inches later. Okay, you should also know that there's a lot of nudity in this movie.
Yes.
However, I'm going to be so real with y'all. I usually clock that like as soon as it happened. And I knew it was going to happen because people were talking about it. And I feel like I came out of that movie and I saw the tweets about it again. And I was like, oh yeah, I like don't remember seeing it in the movie. I'm sure it's there. I guess it just wasn't like the focal point.
I will
for
say
me.
it's not
I don't
ever
know, man.
super pronounced.
Okay.
I mean, I would say there's only one where it's like really there, but I also feel like that's
Yeah.
purposeful because they
Yeah.
introduce these types of infected called alphas,
Yeah.
and I fear, like, when you have a character named Alpha and all of your zombies are naked. What made them the alpha?
Yeah. So there you go.
So
Just a
I
warning.
and I feel
Don't
like
see
that's
with your parents.
I feel that's a little not even a little purposeful. I feel that's pretty
Definitely.
purposeful. But I feel like not used in any kind of like cheap or almost like gimmicky way. Because like I said, I think everything else around it is so strong that, that's not the focal point for me ever.
No, I like the jokes, but I will say it did not stand out to me as much as maybe it did for other people, or maybe they're just exaggerating. I don't know, but it is kind of funny. It's there. It's kind of funny.
It's very fun.
Yeah.
And then speaking of new zombies, we also have crawlers, which are
Those were so
they're
creepy.
more bloated and they crawl. They
Yes.
remind me of one of the like spirits from Talk to Me, like the one that like
Oh.
goes up on her foot. It
Anyways.
gives that.
They're very, very slow because they crawl.
And they're blind.
Oh,
think, as well.
I didn't know they were blind.
Well, because there's the thing
Interesting.
where it thinks it's eating a worm.
Right. We'll get into the spoilers later
Absolutely,
about that.
but I love that
But,
scene. I feel like this movie's also really great with like having shots that like you remember, but you don't know why it's important that we're watching them. And
Yeah.
then later on, it comes back and it's like, oh, this is why I watched it eat a worm, so I can
Yeah.
connect why it's doing this now.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a good amount of those shots here,
I agree.
which is awesome.
Yeah.
It's really it's really important that your audience remembers like the shots that you want to remember them to like call back later.
Yeah.
And I love that this movie doesn't do that super heavy-handedly. It's just like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I remember it doing this, and now it's doing this now. It's
You're like, oh my gosh, everything's coming together. Guys.
oh yeah, it's all coming together. I also said going into the actors. Spike is our main character. I think he
Such a great
is
job.
such a great child actor. He does
Yeah.
such a great job here. I really loved his dynamic. Honestly, with everyone he interacted with, I really liked the relationship between his dad and his mom, and what that
Yeah.
family dynamic looked like. I think they did some really cool, but interesting work there
And realistic, too.
as well.
Very interesting. And I actually really need to look up his filmography to see if he's done it, because we've had some really, really great debuts, or like big screen debuts recently. So
I want to see. I think someone put him into a debut actor list recently.
Okay.
So I dare I say I fear
don't
it
know.
might be. Let me look. I have his IMDb.
Like the
pulled up.
Karate Kid guy and Karate Kid Legends, and now he's going on to do The Long Walk and Hunger Games.
He was also he has 4 credits to his name.
Wow, that's crazy.
And
Good
one
for
of them
him.
is Bone
It better
Temple.
be-
So this is his 3rd.
Oh, wow.
So he
That's
was also
crazy.
in His Dark Materials and something called A New Breed of Criminal.
Interesting.
But
Well,
this
props
is-
to you props to y'all if y'all have seen either one of those things, because you clocked it before we did, I bet.
Absolutely.
So,
Alfie Williams. What a champ.
yeah. He's going to go on. I really hope he's going to go on to do great things. He deserves
I also
it.
saw that he learned how to do archery for this movie, which
Oh,
is
that's
also
rad.
really cool.
Yeah. I wish we had more excuses to want to know how to do archery, because I love archery, but there's barely any places around that even teach it, and it's really unless you hunt, which I don't, because I don't like that. It's why would you need archery? I don't know. Maybe I should, honestly. We need
Back up!
hungry. You scared him. He flinched, and
Well,
I
yeah,
felt
because
him.
archery is scary.
You're gonna be okay, mister. It's okay.
But I think that's very
Said you woke
fun.
me up.
Another thing, actually, that reminds me of, in the conversation of why people really like the originals,
Yeah.
or at least the first one, is that, we see a lot of zombie stories from the Americas where it's oh, let's get our guns out
Yeah.
and get ablazing, which
Yeah.
is not the norm for people living in the UK. So there's
No.
a commentary where it's oh, cool, their weapon of choice is Molotov cocktail, which is, it is a unique story in that sense of
Yeah.
where it is and how people react to zombies there, and the idea that
Yeah.
fighting is a last result.
Yeah. And also, they kind of live somewhere where it's different. They don't have iPhones. It's almost like Amish vibes. I don't know. I don't know much about Amish, but I just know they're unplugged. So it's giving that they make their own weapons. They have a shack or a shed, whatever,
Yeah.
of supplies. And so I thought that was very interesting. It was giving and I liked, because another character had an iPhone, and they were what's that? The kid was what's that? I think the adults knew what it was.
Sure, because they were alive before.
Yeah. But now it's a just completely different world, which I found really interesting. So, worlds colliding 28 years later. Anyways.
Then, so I super liked Spike. His actor's very charming.
Yeah.
Great emotion, especially for a child actor.
Yeah.
Great stuff is going to come from that kid.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, I put Isla.
Isla?
That's a good one. And she plays Spike's mother.
Yeah,
And
Jodie Comer.
She plays an interesting character, at least in the vein of what is ailing her. She's sick.
Yeah.
She's very undeniably sick.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting. She kind of comes in and out of phases throughout this movie, and it
Yeah.
it doesn't feel played up at all.
Mm-mm.
It does feel very inconvenient for
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah.
Which is very important.
Yeah.
But it does bring up an interesting idea of what does modern medicine look like post-apocalypse.
Yeah.
And I like the way they explore that a little bit.
Yeah. I will say I found it a little silly that they said there's no doctor on their island. I'm just you're telling me nobody knows anything about medicine? I'm not saying you have to have a hospital, you don't have to be so advanced, but I did find it a little weird that not a single person was interested in medicine. But
it
I
also
don't know.
could just be a thing where they never had a chance to get anything that taught people that.
maybe they don't have any resources for that. I don't know. But anyways, but then a guy, you know, in the middle of the woods had it. So.
Well, because he originally was with them.
Oh, I didn't clock that actually.
Yes.
Okay, good to know.
'Cause there's a reason they knew his name.
Yeah, I thought they just knew his name because they like found him and conversed with him at first, but then he freaked them out and they left. That's what I was thinking.
That was, they like found out what was happening there, and then
Oh.
yeah.
Sure.
And then, but I still thought her connection with Spike was very
Yeah.
sweet.
Mm-hmm.
And then ultimately throughout that whole plot line, I think it's very impactful.
Yeah. To dance around spoilers, the moment it really locked in for me that they're doing something interesting with her character is what happens in the moment where Spike falls asleep and there's like a
Sure.
crawler confrontation.
Mhm.
That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
We'll get onto that later. I was like, whoa, that's really interesting. I love that decision. I immediately want to know more about her. So,
Yeah.
yeah, very fun.
There's also a moment that she has that I think is really great. It's a spoiler, but
Yeah.
it's I think we can mind connect on what that is, and it's very interesting and something I did not see coming.
Mm-hmm.
But I like that she's kind of the forefront of kind of what they're trying to say there,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't wait to expand on this conversation in the spoiler section.
Yes, yeah.
Dr. Kelson, who's played by Ralph Fiennes.
Right, fine. Yeah.
An amazing role.
Mm-hmm.
He
Totally agree.
He brings a very a wisdom into here. He's almost like
Mm-hmm.
a Dumbledore-esque character, which is really cool. It's he has such like a unique way of looking at things.
Mm-hmm. Funny you
and-
say Dumbledore. Because he's Voldemort.
Oh my gosh, so
You like forget about
goofy.
that, which is crazy
do
because he
forget
did
about
so
that.
well at Voldemort that it's like, what a guy to have that filmography to where people forget he was one of the most iconic villains ever
Yeah.
because he's just that good and has such a great filmography.
I
Crazy.
think it also helps
So.
that we see him with his nose removed and he's bald.
Oh yeah, he definitely looks different, but he's still like when he talks, you can totally see. He obviously he sounds like Voldemort because
Sure.
that's his voice, but you can kind of see the mannerisms, and you're like, oh my god, like Voldemort, get away from me. So, anyways, and now we're gonna see him as Snow. Ugh, what great casting! I'm intrigued because he said that he didn't want to just do like copy paste of Donald Sutherland or his performance. Obviously he is playing a character that has like a prequel and sequel to what he's playing, so he needs to fit into that, but he wants to find his own way to fit into it,
Sure.
which intrigues me. I'm like, okay, I'm here for it. If it was anybody else I'd be worried, but it's you, so I'm not. So
Sure.
I'm here for it. Anyways,
No,
back
great.
to this movie.
No, love that tangent.
Mhm.
I love the kind of perspective he has specifically on the conversation of mortality. He's the one who brings in that Memento Mori line. He has some great lines.
Yeah.
And then he also has a great little environment he made for himself.
Yeah.
Some awesome visuals around him. Some very interesting stuff we learn about him.
Yeah.
I fear we can't get too specific into his character, but he's
Yeah.
he's a great addition to this movie.
Yeah. Her. I agree.
On to the last character I have
Eric.
listed. I have Eric. This is Edvin Writing's character.
Love him.
Yep. From
Young Royals.
Young Royals. I blanked a second, sorry. Very fun addition. He also comes from outside of the quarantine, so he brings
Yeah.
a really interesting perspective into the movie,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the vein of this is a movie about, learning about the world
Mm-hmm.
and how it works, and then here you have someone coming who is from a completely different world, and he's trying
Yeah.
to learn how it works with this kid, and essentially they're, he comes in with his gun and with his tactical knowledge of being in the military, and then here's this kid who just has a bow and arrow and a crazy mom and has lived on the island, and essentially they're both at the same place of survivability.
Yeah. So that was very interesting. The
But,
dynamic there.
And I
the
really
iPhone
like the dynamic
and-
between them all.
Oh, One of the funniest parts of this movie is when he shows. I guess this is not like a big deal spoilers. I feel like I can say it. Is when he pulls up his phone and he's like, "Here's a picture of my girlfriend, I think, or fiance," and she has like hella fillers or whatever. And she looks really pretty, but like she looks like she has filler, and the kid's like, "What's wrong with her face?" And I'm like, oh my god, she's still really pretty. Not to like, hate on her. The fillers actually looked good, but it was still noticed. It was like giving Kylie Jenner.
There's some girls on my island when they eat shellfish who look like that.
Oh, that was so funny.
Ugh.
He was like, "Oh, never mind." So, very fun.
I think he, as an ensemble member, he fits a lot more into like the ensemble. I think in all of these movies, the ensemble kind of grows and shrinks.
Yeah.
In this one, he's a great addition.
Yeah, I agree.
And he highlights what the quarantine zone is, and I think he could potentially be used as maybe like a starting point for learning more about what the outside world is. Very, very interesting.
Yeah.
That is everything I had. Did you have anything else to add?
Let me see. For pros?
For pros, yes.
I don't think so. I liked the added lore. I liked Spike, Ilsa, or Isla, whatever. What did I say?
I think Isla.
Isla? And the doctor. And, yeah. Nope, you covered everything, so.
Alrighty. Do you want to get us kicked off with cons?
Yeah, I only have 2. And they're kind of small, so that, it's still 4 stars, so.
Sure.
I took off essentially half a star for each. Whatever.
Sure.
So, I want more. I wrote this poorly because it's not a city. The town that they're from, the main 3, the mom,
village.
dad. Yeah, the village. I want more lore about it. I want more lore about, like, why do they bother to go out and hunt anyways? The zombies, why is he taking them at 12 years old versus, like, 16, which I think is what they say the normal age is? Why do they bother doing that? It makes sense. Like, at one point they explain they have different roles in the community. That makes sense. That's what we have. A more complex version of what we have now. And then just kind of like, why do they... I don't know. I guess they are stuck there, so that's part of it. But I want to know more, maybe some flashbacks in future films. When something happens to Spike, maybe he has a flashback and like that's a way to add lore. I don't know. Just a little thought. I want some more lore. It's nitpicky, but anyways.
No, I agree. It feels like they have some stylistic choices of some of the stuff they just have around.
Yeah.
And it feels like maybe that could have been explained a little more.
Yeah.
I'm with you, especially with, I think it's really interesting the idea of how everyone got there.
Yeah.
Specifically, there's a twist that they reveal at the very end. I'm curious if you felt the same way. I don't know if maybe I was in, like, I was assuming something that they didn't want us to assume.
Okay.
I don't want to get too spoilery because I think it was a huge reveal that worked a lot for me.
Okay.
And I cannot wait to actually talk about it in the spoiler talk. But it is in regards to that last, like, the end.
The scene.
That
Yeah. So that's in my cons because I did read up about it. Obviously, like, I don't know, like, British lore, and so you kind of have to for that scene. That's all I'm going to say. We'll talk about it later. But I didn't like it in the moment because I was confused what was happening and why it was happening. And it was a complete tonal shift. Like, for me, it ended perfectly right before that.
Yes.
And I feel like that would have still been fine to include in the movie, but I wish it was more like a mid-credit scene.
More separated.
Yes. Because it just ended the movie on such a wildly different note that even if it's not necessarily bad, it just feels bad because you're just so thrown off.
Yes.
And I don't know. I think that's such a shame. I don't want to get into who's playing who in that scene either. I did read up on the lore of who the main guy is supposed to be in real life. So, and I've read that people... Do you know who it is in real life? I'll talk about it a little bit. He's based off a real person in real life who let's just say it did really bad things. We'll talk about it a little bit later. And which he was beloved, and then it was revealed that he did really bad things, and I think he like went to jail or died or something like for a while. He's like dead now. But that's what they're trying to do, a version of like if he, you know, what would have happened if this person didn't become bad and like went through a zombie apocalypse. And I was like, okay. I mean, it's already hard when I didn't grow up with that lore to like care about that.
Sure.
But whatever. I really like the guy playing him.
Yeah.
So the actor. So I'm here to see what they're doing with that. That's what I'm going to say. But within the context of the movie, I wish it was a mid-credit scene. And for that reason, I'm going to put it in my con.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Ultimately, I agree with that point. I will say I was very excited to see it. And the more I think on it, the more I wish it had been immediately followed up with and then you'll see what's happening here in the next movie.
Yeah.
Because I think it's just so
That's the other thing.
different. I think it is just like...
Yeah.
Because I went in, someone had told me that this was a part 1.
Yeah.
But I almost want to like throw back a little bit on that point.
I don't think
I
it
feel like
is.
this is a pretty standalone story.
Yeah.
Minus
It just teases a sequel.
that.
You know, like I feel like it's different than like Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning, Final Reckoning. You can see how they're two halves of a story, even though they stand alone well in their own right. This one, I feel like, is just
I feel like they'll
a first
prove
movie.
if it truly is a part 1 and part 2 in that second one. I think they'll
Yeah.
decide if they want to lean heavily into this one or not,
Yeah.
like Final Reckoning did.
Yeah.
Had to make that choice. I think they can kind of go whichever way they want to. I feel this movie will do really well regardless.
Yeah.
I'm very curious to see what they decide.
I don't know.
We'll get more
crazy.
into that into the spoiler talk.
That's all I have.
But I will say, I also think some of the shots looked a little weird to me. Not because they were bad, they just felt like odd choices, I think.
Okay.
To be fair, it wasn't a lot of the movie, but it was enough for me to like remember it being like, oh, that felt weird. I also think, you know, if your job is to guard the gate in the zombie apocalypse, maybe you guard the gate. Or make sure that you man people who know to guard the gate.
Yeah. I mean, they were really bad at their job. I was like, okay, we all have roles in the society, and this needs to not be yours, clearly. So,
And then
anyways.
I also put some stuff down. So the reaction to this movie has been surprised me with a little bit of negativity.
Okay.
Like the cinema score was a
A B. Which is not great.
and I've heard there's almost an general audience consensus that the movie that they got was not the movie that they thought was being advertised to them.
Yeah, and the audience score, I think, is a 65.
It's pretty low considering. It's close to that Rotten.
Which
So
is weird. And I did look, the first two, I did not find that either one of them had a cinema
they did
score.
not,
So,
either.
yeah,
So I don't know. I feel like
that's interesting.
I also can't imagine necessarily what they thought they were getting into.
Maybe, I wonder how many people just saw this as the first movie in that franchise.
I don't know, but I also feel like it does stand alone really well.
Yeah. I don't know. That's weird to me. I feel like we did get something different. Like, we got what I expected from this movie in the first half, and then they expand to something really, really fascinating in the second half.
Mm-hmm.
So I just can't imagine. I mean, it's fine to be surprised by that. I'm surprised by that. But I'm happily surprised. So I can't imagine coming out of that movie and being upset about that. But clearly enough people were, so something's happening. I don't know.
Interesting. So
What's happening in life where we hate the first two and everyone loves the first one, likes the second one. And then now people are like,
this one is divisive.
yeah,
I-
divisive, and we love it.
Mm-hmm.
What's happening here? I don't understand.
Some stuff because I was actually curious. I'm looking at some Rotten Tomato audience reviews that are on the low side.
Okay.
The second half of this movie seems like it was written by ChatGPT. Borderline, I would switch that. That's
crazy.
Not true. Like,
That's
if anything,
objectively not
like,
true.
if there's a weaker part of the script, it's the first half.
Yeah.
What? 2 out of 5.
Oh
New
my
concepts
God.
were introduced. If given proper examination, could have been very rewarding. Many of them were simply left by the wayside. I don't know if I agree with that. That, I think, goes into the vein of, did you want this movie to be just about the zombies? Because none of the other 28-year movies have been about zombies all that heavily. And
No.
I don't know.
That's weird. Okay.
Let me see if I can find one more.
There's a disconnect here, and it's very
Unrealistic that a 12-year-old would do what he does in the movie. I'm summarizing, which I also think is not true. I don't know. I don't know. But I also feel like I just don't get where the disconnect is, because I feel like this is the movie we're trying. Like, this is the movie like, at least on paper, was expecting to see. It landed really well with me, which I didn't anticipate it landing as well as it did. But I don't feel like,
so weird.
Other than like that ending, that it took any huge right turns for me. So I guess I don't see where people feel they're getting gypped. I someone
know.
threw out the idea that it, like, with the heavy themes that I think are explored really well here. Alex Garland, who was the writer on this one, and who has done, a handful of other things.
Civil War, warfare.
There was an idea brought up that he kind of lures people in with, this, like, with something, and then they instead give a indie piece. And I don't know.
Okay.
I actually have liked a lot of the stuff that he's worked on that they brought up in that.
I liked Civil War. I loved Warfare.
Did you ever watch Annihilation?
No.
I need you to watch
Okay.
Annihilation. It has Oscar Isaac, and it
Add
has
it to my
Tessa
list.
Thompson, and it's starring Jane Foster. I forget her name.
Oh, Natalie Portman.
Natalie Portman.
Oh,
She's the main character.
Okay.
It's
Add
really
it to my
good.
list. I'll watch it.
But those are all movies that are also very, like, theme heavy. And, like, everything in this movie is centered around a theme. And I love movies that center around a theme.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I guess I just can't understand being of the mind where it's like, oh, I didn't expect this movie to be about something. Or, I don't know. I don't think it's exactly that. But I feel like it's pretty close to that idea where people are like, oh, I came to watch a movie, not a film, almost.
Yeah, that sucks. It's like they came to watch a dumb zombie blockbuster, and one, that sucks that you have such low expectations for movies. Wouldn't you want something of more substance, like zombie movie and heart? And then two, that's not what was being advertised. That's
not what the 28 Years Later franchise has also ever been.
Why
even
do you
at
have
the
those
parts we
expectations?
don't like.
And it's like people love The Last of Us. Honestly, they forget that show's about zombies half the time because it's so much heart, and people love that. And I'm like, and that's a great thing. I like it too. So it's like, why is it a problem here?
I don't know.
It's so weird. The Walking Dead, I feel like has a more even presence of both, but still very much like their lifestyle they're forced to live, and those relationship dynamics are still very much present. So that's so weird. I don't know. I don't know why they have that disconnect, but I feel like that's not on the marketing. I think that's just some random thing that has unfortunately happened with the audience. So that's a shame.
Yeah.
Still making money though, so you know
Thank
what?
God.
Who cares?
I'm really glad.
At the end of the day.
Going into the next section, are we good to go? Spoiler? Anything else to add before we move on?
I'm good.
Alrighty. We are going to get into some spoiler talk on 28 Years Later. I think we can both highly recommend this film.
Yeah.
Don't go with anyone you don't want to look at naked, infected people with.
Yeah.
You have been warned on that.
Basically.
But definitely, I think it's worth seeing in theaters.
Mm-hmm.
And our theater was like buzzing as soon as it was over. There was a lot of conversation. I heard a lot of people talking about the other movies. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I
don't
feel
know,
like
man.
this is a great movie to watch, especially in theaters. So that's our recommendation. So if you haven't seen it, we recommend you go see it before continuing in our conversation. But that
Yeah.
being said, spoiler talk. Let's talk about that ending.
So, I don't remember all the details, but I remember the main guy, the blonde guy, the guy that's played by Jack O'Connor.
Yes.
Connell.
Connell.
Yes. Love him. The only reason I'm excited for that storyline is because of him.
Sure.
So, his character is named Jimmy something.
Jimmy, yeah.
Jimmy
Crystal?
Crystal. And I think there's a guy in like British lore, real life British lore, that is named Jimmy something, Jimmy Crystal, Jimmy Slate, something like that. I don't remember. He was I believe a talk show host. He did like a couple different shows, and he was really, really well liked and popular. People loved this guy. And then years later, decades later, it was revealed that he did some really, really messed up stuff. Like, I think, oh gosh, I don't remember what he did, actually. Basically, he did some pretty disgusting things. I'm like leaning towards, I want to say sexual harassment kind of stuff, assault kind of stuff. Maybe not. Maybe with kids, maybe with not. I don't remember. Really bad stuff where people obviously then hated his guts and were like betrayed, and he was like, I think, locked away, and he's dead now. He's been dead now, I think.
Okay.
I might have gone. Sorry if I'm wrong about any of that, but along those lines, essentially, this guy was well liked. He did something horrible. It got revealed. People hated him, and so I see people saying this is genius because it was so chilling when I realized who they were basing it off of. I think he dressed similarly. I want to say.
Interesting.
Something like that. I don't know, man. I haven't even seen a picture of him because
Sure.
honestly, I don't want to know all that much about him. So, but they were saying, oh, that's genius, because it's like saying, well, what if he didn't grow up in the same world and went on to do all those bad stuff? What if he grew up, was still a good person, but then a zombie apocalypse happened? It's hard for me to connect with that because, one, I don't care who he is, especially knowing that he did bad stuff. I don't want to know who he is. So it's different for me. Instead, if you grew up with him and loved him and then felt that betrayal, that would probably be a lot more powerful to you.
Mm-hmm.
A lot more chilling in a vampire or zombie movie. I keep wanting to say vampire. Anyways. So, and then I also just, again, I feel like the placement of the scene was not great.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted it to be a mid-credit scene. We'll see what they're doing with that. I don't know. Unfortunately, I'm a little afraid about it because I don't understand the lore as much or care about it. So if they're going to play that up a lot, one, why give that platform to such a horrible person? Mm-hmm. And then how are you going to connect with audiences that don't understand that lore? So
I will say, while you were saying that, I was thinking in my head, man, remember the time when it would be revealed that someone did something really horrible and the public changed their opinion on them? The times. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I fear there's something very powerful to be said with that. And, you know, how we feel people should react to stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And how people do react to stuff like that.
Well, like, what are you going to say? What are you going to say about that in the movie?
I don't know. I feel like...
Is he going to be a bad person in the movie?
In the vein of, like we were just saying, with like having a coming of age story happen on the backdrop of of this world.
Yeah.
I think there is something to be said social commentary wise about it, because I had heard that he was going to be playing a cult leader in this movie.
Oh, okay.
So
they're dressed like Teletubbies too. So very much like cultural references there.
Yes, I spent the entire movie until that point thinking that the kid in the opening scene was Spike's dad.
That's what I thought too.
And I think that's very purposeful. And in the vein of that,
Yeah.
I was very interested to be like, so how did everyone get to this island? Because
Yeah.
we know that he wasn't from this island. He's just all here.
Yeah.
Now I guess we can assume they were all from that island.
Yeah.
Lest there be a much bigger population there.
Yeah.
So the reveal that this was the kid that we saw in the beginning, all grown up, I think there's going to be some interesting stuff here. I think specifically, because I didn't know any of that stuff that you had found beforehand. To me, what I thought was going to be really interesting was the idea of, you know, in the comparison between, like, the whole movie starts and that shot I said that, like, really stuck out as, like, this is what this movie is like the blood stain being put over the TV showing the Teletubbies, where it's like, you know, this
Loss of
you're supposed to
innocence
be
and destruction.
Like, you're losing your innocence. It's violence, and you're forced to grow up really fast.
Yeah.
And I think, to me, what's going to be really interesting is seeing Spike had his parents to kind of like start him on this journey and kind of set these morals and values in him.
Yeah.
And then here's Jimmy, who did not.
Yeah.
You had him. You even had almost the exact opposite. You had his mother trying to keep him unaware of what was happening.
Yeah.
And, you know, he pushed back on that, which is what saved his life.
Yeah.
And then his father is the one saying give into it, whereas Spike's father is the one teaching him how to hunt these things.
Yeah.
So you have almost a polar opposite, but you have two children, and honestly, with how they're dressed, I think it's safe to say a man-child.
Yeah.
Kind of living in this world and making their own way, and what that looks like for him as compared to what will that look like for Spike.
Yeah.
I think they're two almost foils of each other, where they're almost like having opposite stories.
Yeah.
One has seen what the world was like beforehand. Spike has not.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm very
hard to follow
interested
up.
to see what they do there, almost even specifically in the context of these two characters.
See, that sounds interesting. And I feel like that can exist without it being a reference to a real person, a
No.
nasty person at that.
Sure.
So I almost wish I didn't know that, but I don't know. Oh well.
But I remember being very gagged whenever I saw that he had the cross that was handed to the kid in the first, and I was like,
Yeah.
what? How did this happen?
It's like the Leonardo DiCaprio like.
Exactly. But
Pointing
another part of it,
meme.
because I know we said it was very Teletubbies, that ending,
Yeah.
but actually I completely
Also
forgot
Power Rangers.
the Power Rangers.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be something that really appeals to him at the beginning. And I think in the vein of this being a coming-of-age story and finding her place in the world, I think this is almost going to be like his, like, almost like, this is what it's like to be in high school, where you meet this cool kid in this club and you try to fit in, and then you realize, you know, you have to come to your conclusion of, oh, I don't want to be this. I think it's going to be very interesting. I'm very curious to see what the heck, like, their base of operations or whatever looks like.
Yeah, I wonder how many flashbacks they're gonna do with that, if they're gonna do any at all. Like if they're gonna do a backstory on how the heck did he survive and grow up as a kid, from a kid to now. I don't know if they're gonna show that. I hope they do, but I guess if it's relevant to what they're trying to say.
And then also in the sequel, we've heard that Cillian Murphy's character's coming back.
Yeah.
So how does that fit into everything as well?
I don't know.
Like that? I don't know.
I
feels like a
feel
very
like
different
I
story.
need a map now of where everyone is and where everything has taken place. I need a map. Maybe someone else made one. Honestly,
There's one on the back of the
online.
There's one on the back of the poster.
Oh yeah.
Our movie
okay.
theater had a poster of the 28 years later, and on the back it had a map.
Yeah.
So
Perfect.
maybe.
Maybe I'll look at that.
But I don't know. Overall, I do wish that they had put a separation between the two, or at least a stronger one.
Yeah.
Because I do think the movie before that last scene is very, like, start and end for me.
Yeah.
And then I just knew that there was going to be a next chapter, so I was like,
Yeah.
okay, so this is what leads us into that next one.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
It's very interesting. Kind of circling back to some of the other stuff we didn't talk about is the infected born, not infected baby.
Oh yeah.
The scene that Jodie Comer had in the train, which I almost wonder if that's supposed to like be a reference to the Train to Busan. I wouldn't know, but I feel like it's interesting that a huge part, like a pretty prominent action sequence, happens on a train with your infected. Mm-hmm. It feels unaccidental, but I was very thrown off on what they were trying to do when like the infected mother was birthing a baby, and here she was still looking for comfort from an uninfected, and she was willing.
It's like the
in enough
rage, the pain and the desperation of wanting her kid to be safe and have comfort in that took over the rage.
Something like that. It's a really interesting.
Yeah, because she doesn't ever try to attack anybody. So.
She does after that.
Yeah, after that, she's like, okay, now I'm back. Mm-hmm. So I had my moments. Sorry. But in the moment, they're like holding on.
Yeah, and then it was very surprising to see that the baby wasn't infected.
Yeah.
The doctor later on attributes that to the placenta in some way. So that's okay.
I don't know, man.
It was like, baby's come out covered in blood. So I guess he really kept his mouth closed.
Yeah. I don't know. That's interesting. And what do they eat and drink to like keep the baby, have its nutrients or whatever?
I will say, I really liked in the context of this conversation, further into the idea that like life will always happen, life will repeat itself, there will always be the good things.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting to very specifically see from an infected person that innocence that this movie is trying to talk about so much. And if they weren't here, this thing would not have a chance at innocence.
Yeah.
So it's it's a very interesting element that I did not see coming whatsoever.
Yeah.
But then it adds some fun stuff, and then we see the Alpha, who we've not talked a lot about. I believe the doctor called him Samson. And I thought it was very cool how he was tracking alphas in the area.
Yeah.
And he had that medicine that him and his blow dart
paralyzed them. Yeah.
It paralyzes them. I thought that was very cool. I think there was an element, you said you didn't pick up on it, but I interpreted that scene, and so did Cole, my fiance, who watched it with us. We interpreted that as that was the Alpha's kid, which is why he was so apt at going above and beyond to find it.
I don't know. I didn't think about it too hard, I guess.
Which also I think ties into, connects it to the family aspect of Spike, and how it's he doesn't, his relationship with his father is very on the rocks, and here he is with his mother, trying to save it, and then it's his mother who saved the baby and wanted to protect it.
Yeah.
Ultimately giving it back to, essentially, I guess, his dad.
Yeah.
So it's all very interesting. That shot that I really loved that I was talking about with the stars is when they're running back from the first trip over the bridge, and you can see the stars and the edge of the Milky Way really well, and I was like, oh my gosh, they're running to the gates of heaven here. It was so beautiful. And then it was also really chilling, so you have this really advanced adrenaline thing with the Alpha chasing them as they're trying to get to the gate.
Yeah. With
this amazing and beautiful shot, and it's I loved everything that was doing there.
It's gonna steal your snacks again.
Oh, stay away from my snacks. Don't get my snacks.
I was eating chips earlier, and I was putting them. It's literally like a toddler where he was clawing on my hand to try to get my food as it was going in my mouth. I'm like, you're crazy. You'd be crazy for that. Anyways.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I think it's interesting seeing the gang, that gang at the end. Whoa. That they're mentioned a lot. You see Jimmy, Jimmy's name is spray painted on walls, and his gang is the one who hung the body up.
Okay.
So I think it's really interesting that the movie had them, their present hinted at for so much of the movie. Yeah,
I didn't clock that.
Yep, that body that they find hanging, that is Jimmy's gang. That did that and hung him up, and then there's some sign that's the world belongs to Jimmy or something like that on the wall that I clocked.
Okay, I didn't clock any of that.
Yeah, they definitely went completely out of the blue.
Okay, per.
Trying trying to think of anything else we skipped over. Isla having cancer.
Yeah.
I thought that was very tragic. I think there was also that element of, you good?
Sorry, it's not funny. My cat is going crazy right now. Anyways.
I thought it was very
Great.
interesting, the idea that everyone knew that she had cancer and couldn't be saved, but no one wanted to tell Spike. And so you have him go on that journey, which is another thing that I can't believe someone would be like. It feels unrealistic that a 12-year-old, is it 14?
12.
12, that
I
a
think
12-year-old
12.
would take his sick mother to the mainland where there's a bunch of infected zombies, and it's like, well, I fear a child will do that if someone shows him that he can do that and survive.
Yeah.
Dad.
Yeah.
And truly believes that there's no other way for his mother to survive. I fear that is exactly
Yeah.
what you get in this situation.
Yeah. I agree.
Especially after you hear that, a doctor is over there somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the idea, the whole story behind why we don't talk about that doctor felt very
We don't talk about doctor.
it felt very really? This is, you couldn't believe a doctor was burning corpses to I don't know, do something with it, or just give them burials,
Yeah.
that's where you had the.
That's
I don't know.
where you draw the line.
That felt a little weird.
A little bit cop out.
But it was immediate. It was never something where, because I'd heard that he was pretty nice, that he was a nice guy going into the
Okay.
thing. So I was immediately like, oh, so where's the confusion coming from? And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, what?
You're like, oh, okay.
It's he wasn't even covered in blood or anything, so it didn't look like maybe he was doing anything there to cause the deaths. It was a very odd choice, I thought.
Oh, goodness.
Anything else? Oh, the Memento Mori line.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting in the vein of these movies where it's everyone's gonna die.
Mm-hmm.
One of the best ways is, with the person that they loved the most in their lifetime, and then that everyone must die, but we must remember that everyone must love. I thought that was very sweet. Shut up.
Don't talk
I'm
to
sorry.
him like
do
that.
you have a podcast?
Don't talk to
No.
him like that. He's just a little guy.
Little freak.
Anyways.
And then I really loved the Bone Temple.
Mm-hmm.
The bones being everywhere. I think it could have come off as crazy. He's crazy, and this is disrespectful. But I loved the idea that it's highlighting it's a monument to loss. It's giving Ofrenda from Day of the Dead, and the idea that these all used to be people, and here there's a place for them to all kind of come together and be in death together. And I don't know, it's very sweet.
Yeah.
Considering Bone Temple is what the other one is named, at least for now.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's very interesting, because this one is definitely giving Bone Temple.
Yeah.
So I'm very interested. Do we go back there? Do they have their own?
Maybe.
I'm very interested to see kind of what comes next.
Yeah. That name.
Was there anything else spoiler wise you needed to add?
I don't think so.
Oh, gun scene. With how Eric gets there. I thought that was done very cool against the Alpha in the tunnel.
Yeah.
I thought it was very tragic that they just randomly crashed up on the shores.
Yeah.
Hate to see it. The idea that it's not just the mainlanders
So
that are trapped here.
unfortunate. Mhm.
Anyone who comes here is trapped here.
Mhm.
Very
Yeah.
interesting. I will say, 28 weeks later puts them in a really unfortunate position where it's okay, cool. You literally mentioned in the opening lines that it eventually made it to the mainland, but they got kicked off. So it's so you just don't want to do that to the rest of the mainland ever.
Yeah.
So it's a little.
It's so why do we give up
I don't want to call
here?
it sloppy, but it's just a horrible place that the arguably worst movie put them in.
Yeah, that's a shame. Because in ignoring that, it comes off as a little bit sloppy, which is unfortunate, but I don't know.
It's definitely a franchise that's meant to be locked in one place.
Let me go. I cannot be contained.
But, yeah, and then the way it ripped out, oh my gosh, it was almost Predator the way that the Alpha ripped out Eric's head and his spine.
That was kind of crazy.
Yeah,
That's one of the posters. Is a skull and a spine. You should look it up.
Oh
It's
my
pretty
gosh.
cool.
It's so Predator.
One of them is that, and then one of them is the bone temple of the kid putting his mom's.
Oh, and I super
head.
love the scene where he's putting his mom up at the top of the temple.
Yeah.
Ugh, it feels so emotional and like a really good send off and goodbye.
Yeah.
Ugh. It hits, man.
But also, I'm so surprised that he hasn't figured out some like glue of some sort to like keep them in place, because like at one point I think one just like knocks off or falls off. I'm like, oh my god, what if he falls? I know he's not, because it's a movie, he's not gonna fall, but like what if he falls? That's so awkward. What if it all falls down?
Well, that's
Anyways.
circle of life.
I guess.
So what do you think? I mean, we've talked about it a little bit, but is there anything that you think the next one is going to look like with Bone Temple? Do you think there's anything you want to happen in Bone Temple?
I want to know more about the town or village he's from, and then I want to know more about the group that he seems to have met and maybe be joining or whatever at the end of this film. And I'd imagine it's going to be a lot about the latter part.
Yes.
So, a lot about them.
I hope that this group gets more, like, maybe lore drop than his village did.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Like, if we
Yeah,
have to
seems more
sacrifice not
relevant.
getting more stuff about the other place, I'm fine as long as we
Yeah.
get more of that, of, like, this movie's circle
Yeah.
organization and community than the last one did.
But also, I think it's important to kind of show that a little bit. Not as much, because we know next to nothing about this new group. But I think it could be important to kind of further showcase the differences in their upbringing. But we did get a movie where we did learn a lot about his stuff, and we don't know anything about them so far. So I definitely want to see mostly stuff about them. And maybe like some flashbacks here and there about his parents or whatever.
Do you think Spike... Where do you think Spike's journey is headed? Like, do you think eventually he moves back to the town? Do you think he might eventually get off the island?
Honestly, I don't know. I'm leaning... If I had to pick between those two, I would lean more towards off the island. But I don't know. I feel like the second movie is really going to solidify what they're trying to do and say with this new trilogy they're building. So, I don't know. But I'm open. This movie has made me a lot more open to whatever they want to be doing. So, I don't know. But I'm here for whatever they want to do. Want to try. So,
Same here.
yeah.
I will say, I think that first trailer is going to do a lot. And I think it's going to...
Yeah.
I think they need another really strong trailer. I
Yeah.
think, unfortunately, this movie's main trailer was too strong for them to start slacking
Oh my
almost
gosh.
at all. So,
Yeah.
we do also have from The Walking Dead, Michonne's actress. I forget her name, but she's also Okoye from Black Panther.
Yeah.
And those Marvel movies, which I'm excited.
She was not in this.
She was not in this at all, which I don't think... I think I knew she wasn't going to be in this one.
Oh. I thought you had told me. I was under the impression that she was in this movie.
Oh, my
But maybe
mistake.
that was just like the second one, though. Maybe. I don't know. I'm excited if she's in the second one. I'm excited for Cillian Murphy and whatever they want to do with him. So we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, absolutely.
know.
I hope
gonna
everything
be-
blends together well. I
Yeah.
think this was a very grounded movie, and I think it was very focused on Spike and his family.
Yeah.
And I hope that they have a solid focus in the next one.
Yeah.
I almost feel like that was what these other movies were missing. Like there was so much going on, and there was like, oh, we gotta make sure all of these other characters are as fleshed out as the other characters. And I
Yeah.
disagree. I think flesh out your lead, and make sure you see where he's connecting to these people from. And I feel like you're solid. I feel like that almost goes for like most movies. So we've talked a little bit about the
Alright.
reception.
Yeah, we could just kind of finish out because we mentioned cinema and audience. Critic score is 89, so that's good. That's strong. IMDb is 7.2. That's not bad. It's towards the better side. And then Metacritic is 76. Also, would you say our ranking, both of ours, is just each one gets a little bit better? Like the first two get, like it goes 1, 2, 3 from bottom to top? Would you say, or would you switch 2 and 1?
I would probably say that, yeah.
Okay.
I feel like 2 does more interesting stuff, but... Or no, I think 1 does more interesting stuff than 2 does ultimately, but... I don't know. The whole... the whole sexual assault of it all just feels so unnecessary. I unfortunately can't put that at the front.
Yeah, that's so fair. So fair. Let's talk about box office.
Absolutely, box office. Well, actually, real quick, I wanted to look at the other ones. Critic score, this one is the highest.
Mm-hmm.
For audience score, it is the lowest.
That's so weird to me.
I can't fathom it.
I don't know.
So, I think that's interesting. Box office-wise, it is at 62 worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
And it's 32 domestic, which is the highest opening
Yeah.
for this franchise
Mhm.
by a lot. So
And the budget was only $60 million. So.
yes, and so it's already made back,
Like the
that original
initial-
budget.
Yeah.
I want to say I feel like the advertising budget wasn't insane here, so I feel like
I don't
even when
think
we get to
so.
the 2.5, I think that's going to be well into the profit margin.
Yeah.
So good for this movie. I think it's already going to be. It's next weekend. It's already going to be the most profitable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because the first one only made 82 million. Second one only made 64 million.
Yeah.
So next weekend it's at
Ugh.
least in second place.
Yeah.
So it's gonna get there. I think it's easily
Yeah.
gonna get profitable. It only needs to make that's 120, so 115, 150, right?
Mm-hmm.
To be profitable, which
Yeah.
I think is gonna be. I want to say I think it's gonna be pretty easy.
I think so too. I know it is getting crowded pretty quick, and not slowing down for a while. So that is troublesome.
And there's the B cinema score.
Yeah, that's not great either. And I mean, the audience reception hasn't been that great, so a lot of audiences not going to return. But so I don't want to overestimate what I think the end goal is going to be, because I do think those are going to slow it down a bit. I don't know. I kind of want to. I don't know. I kind of want to say like 180. Is that
Okay.
crazy? What are you thinking?
I think I would aim at really close to that break-even point of 2.5. I maybe just a scooch over. I'm thinking more like I'm thinking 260.
260?
No, not 260.
160.
160. Oh my
Okay.
gosh. Right.
That's a little far. Yeah.
I don't want to overestimate here. 1.5 billion. I'm locking in 160.
Do I want to lock in 180? I don't know.
My thought is it's either going to be 160 or lower. I don't anticipate it getting much higher than 160 at the most.
I don't want to be too pessimistic, so I'll do the solid like 150, like the 2. That's like at the 2.5 times that we usually do.
Yeah.
Do right at that. I really don't want to do lower, like would hurt my heart. So
Absolutely.
and
but-
I would love to be proven wrong, like by a long shot. So.
Yeah. So
Love it.
hopefully it will. I will say I think Megan is coming out this next weekend, which is another horror
And
movie.
F1. Oh yeah.
But specifically for like this like genre, it does have another
Although,
horror movie coming in. It's
it's
very
giving-
differently themed.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying, "Oh, so it's giving superhero like action movie."
It's
Yeah.
gonna be a very interesting slant to
Yeah.
the genre.
Mhm.
I think it's going to set an interesting precedent for this franchise going forward.
Yeah.
And I'm very excited about it.
Mhm.
So
And then, I guess Jurassic World would be like kind of horror and action as well. And
Sure.
It's like, it has that like terror element of
Sure,
it.
definitely
of the
thriller in there.
dinosaurs. Yeah. Although I've heard bad things about that. They've been doing some early screenings of the whole movie,
interesting.
which usually shows high confidence, and I fear.
I've only seen one reaction to it, and that was
I've
from
seen-
Wanda's attorney, and they liked it.
Oh, well, that's good. 'Cause
The Wanda
every
stans
other
are liking
person-
it.
Okay, well, that's good. Every other person, I will say the only positive thing I've heard about it is people are saying Scarlett Johansson's character and Jonathan Bailey's characters are giving Milo from Atlantis and that I don't remember her name, but like I think
The bad
the
girl.
villain.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I kind of love that. So I'm like, honestly, I'm eating that up.
And
I'm so
also, I
excited
want to be
for
on the
it.
record here. I showed her an image that was comparing Jonathan Bailey's character to Milo in this movie
Yeah.
forever ago, and she was like, "No,
What?
you said no.
I think you're lying right
I'm
now.
not lying right
He's
now."
like heavily giving Milo. I mean, he's more like buff than Milo, but like he's got the glasses. He's
Listen to her
nerdy,
try to
he's a
gaslight me
scientist.
right now. Let's mark this.
I'm sorry. You're gonna look at me and tell me that I'm wrong.
Yes.
That's
Are you gonna
crazy.
look
I'm
at me and tell
telling
me
you you're wrong.
I'm misremembering something? You're gonna tell me
Okay,
that?
but here's the thing. It's not that I misremember, it's that I don't remember. So I still feel like the same. I just forget the conversation has been had. But I would still feel and think the same. It's like movies where I'm like, oh my god, I love that movie, but don't remember it. And then I rewatch it and I'm like, oh, I still love it, but now I'm remembering why. So you can side eye the camera all you want. That's the truth.
Right.
Hate to say
Anyways,
it. Hate
oh
to say
no, I was going to ask something.
I don't know. I will say, as long as this Jurassic World actually has, like, dinosaurs as their, like, conflict or villain, it's already better than the last one, which was about bugs. So stupid.
You only see the bugs like 2 scenes.
It's like, but where are the dinosaurs?
They
Why
go
is
to
it
the
like,
island.
yeah, and had bugs.
The bugs weren't on the island. They were on the mainland.
Well, like, that's what I remember from that movie, and I'm like, why did I just watch bugs? That's really stupid. I want to watch dinosaurs.
There definitely isn't a lot of bugs in that movie. I fear you need a rewatch.
I don't know, man. There were too many bugs for me. That's all I'm gonna say. Anyways, you need to move on.
What was I'm
You're
trying
being
to remember.
You're being hateful on me right now.
I'm
That's
trying
crazy.
to remember what the heck I was going to try and end on, but I can't remember. Yeah, that makes me sad because I'm gonna
So
remember.
sad.
I feel like you with your memory.
Good. Good.
Alrighty.
Anyways.
So that being said, that's what I
So-
wanted to do. The draft update. So
Okay.
you had
This is running long.
Well, it's short.
So do it
okay?
quick.
You added Elio,
Do it actually
and
quick.
28 years later added to your draft, and I did update all of the scores. So currently you have taken the lead with
because I have more movies.
with 4 movies.
So.
You're at 240. I am at 3 movies, and I am now at 179.
Per?
Next weekend we are adding F1 for you and Megan 2 for me.
Yeah.
So we shall see what the scores look like next weekend.
Then we have Jurassic World for me, Superman for me, then 2 weeks after that, Fantastic Four for you. So, yeah. It's starting to come together.
It's coming
I'm
together.
excited.
But that being said, thank you guys so much for tuning into our conversations. Let us know what you think about 28 years later. Did you like it? How does it compare to the other ones for you? Let us know. We'd be very interested to see how more people feel about this franchise. Obviously, we have some thoughts that are not popular, but what are your thoughts? Would love to hear them.
Anyways.
But until next time, I'm your host, Luke.
I'm your other host, Alicia.
And thank you guys so much for listening to Not So Straight Nerds.
Bye.
Bye-bye.